Hey, what's going on, guys? DKB here. Sorry about yesterday starting things off. We were supposed to have Long Beach Joe Jets join us, and I ended up having some technical issues on my end. So there was a random computer reset, and then there was just a lot of technical issues since. But glad to be able to get going with you guys. Appreciate everybody that's in here currently. I did chop it up with Long Beach Joe again. So we're hoping that we get him in here today to kind of dive into some things. But did want to get things going. We had a few different topics that were going to be on the table today. Pretty much current state of the Jets is the overall theme, right? What are all the things that are happening? What are some of the deep diving things that we've heard about, right? Things have gotten crazy lately with all the different trade scenarios. My channel has morphed a little bit into bringing you guys, it seems like almost weekly, what some of those trade scenarios are. So it's definitely been pretty interesting. But for starters, I would say let's dive into our roster makeup, right? What is currently making up the New York Jets? How are things looking for us? And I would say we are probably in the best situation that we've been in since those playoff rosters that we had. And keep in mind, there's a very stark difference. We're talking about that previous playoff team being a very heavy veteran-led squad. I can't name, at least in my last 25 plus years being a Jets fan, a roster that was this young and being led completely by youth. I mean, off the top of my head, CJ Mosley is the only guy that's really kind of holding down the fort for us if you want to talk about seniority. And he's really only playing his first actual season, heading into his second season with us, due to all the injuries and the craziness that was going on for him. So we have a very new situation for us. It's a new era for a lot of us New York Jets fans by far. I would say starting off with the quarterback room, I personally, I wasn't the biggest Zach Wilson fan when we drafted him. I was hoping that we secured Trey Lance. I love just his blend of athleticism. I'm big on the backstories. I think I kind of jumped into the NFL, head coaching realm when you're talking about thinking about personnel. And I love Trey Lance's story. I thought that was very similar to what Josh Allen's background looked like. When you're talking about just kind of a blue collar, head down, he didn't seem like he necessarily, was impacted by the big lights in terms of seeking it or, having bad performances based off of it. So I just felt like he was the perfect blend of physical talent as well as the mental genetic makeup. But seeing what Zach Wilson was last season, diving more into his backstory, it almost gives me the Mark Sanchez vibes, right? You're talking about the true first year breakout player, and very minimal experience outside of that. But when you kind of dive into what he finally was able to do that season, you would have to think that you can make that case that would have been a continuous productive streak he would have been able to put on display. So I posted a video a while back. It was interesting seeing kind of what the breakup of his passes and the touchdown makeups and things were. And it's exciting to see what the New York Jets did this season because Zach Wilson's, his junior year, that we've seen the huge stat, blow up and all the great things that he was able to do. He favored his tight ends quite a bit. I think 12 or 13 touchdowns went specifically to his tight ends, and he had a crazy 6'7" threat out there. But we given him some credible NFL threats. CJ Uzoma, I think the breakdown that we see, he translates directly from the Bengals over to us in terms of he's going to be a yards after catch master. He has a lot more of the wiggle on tape that you see where he can make some guys miss or he could just bowl over you. And then we have Tyler Conklin, who I consider our true passing threat. He's the guy that's going to be able to get open in double coverage or one-on-ones. He's going to be able to secure the ball and make a lot of those chain-moving tough catches for us. But he has almost no wiggle on tape. He's kind of a stone statue once he gets the ball in his hand. He's ready to just kind of roll over you if possible. So I'm excited to see that for sure. Originally, we mentioned that it was only Tyler Conklin that I had for the information at the time that was going to tight end university. And then it ended up turning out that we were going to get CJ Uzoma as well. I've seen a lot of the social media pics. And then some of the videos with Zach Wilson throwing out there. So it's great to see that outside of Justin Rucker, who, keep in mind, has been dealing with injury, he's the guy who has been developing chemistry with his entire team. We've seen the Zach Wilson offseason tour and, heading up to Tennessee, heading up to Florida. I forgot where they held tight end university at, but he's flying out there, and he's still going to do his passing camp before training camp starts back up with a lot of his weapons this month. And I think it's about like a week and a half, 2 weeks away now. So everything that Zach Wilson has showed us this offseason, and, I can't kind of restate this enough, has explicitly shown us that he's taken every step possible. There's not a single thing you can look at Zach Wilson and say, well, if he had a bad season, he could have did a little bit more of this in the offseason. And I think that's exactly what we need. We haven't had that with any guy in the past. Put it out there if I'm wrong, but we've never heard about Mark Sanchez doing off-season tours. Obviously, every quarterback has some kind of passing camp of their own, but it's normally guys coming to them. We've never seen guys put in the extra work the way he has. We've never even heard about a guy having as stacked of an off-season as Zach Wilson has had. He's barely had a break. And keep in mind, he cut his trip to Cabo short, or didn't end up going at all, whatever the case was, to make sure he went to tight end university at the request of George Kittle, just to get in the extra work. And it just so happened that we got both of our guys in there with them. And I'm sure Jeremy Rucker probably wouldn't have been able to attend too if he wasn't, attending to his foot injury. But we're expecting him to be green lighted for training camp. So I'm excited what he brings there. All the reports basically mentioned that he was underutilized in Ohio, where they had, way too many weapons. Garrett Wilson, they had the Chris Olave kid. And then, of course, you're talking the running backs. It wasn't very focused on the tight ends, at least for what they had. Whether that's by design or just kind of what ended up spanning out, it is what it is. So I'm excited to have him. Personally, I love the backstory. Jeremy Ruckert is, quite frankly, all of us. He's the kid that ended up playing sports, ended up diving into football, and then was able to realize his dream of being signed by the team he actually wanted. I remember personally when I was a kid, before I even started really diving into all of the sports, if I was ever going to go the football realm, then I was willing to, kind of be that standout player where I was going to request specifically only wanting to be picked by the Jets. So it was really cool seeing that we were able to get him and get him picked up. But irregardless, I think our backup situation at quarterback is a lot more interesting than what the starting situation is like. We know Zach Wilson doesn't have any competition this season. And we know from a backup perspective, everybody's kind of considering, are we going to keep both Joe Flacco and Mike White, or are we going to keep it down to two? Because we know we have plenty of talent at other positions that we can definitely use it as. And I personally have already put it out there. I think we see Mike White get traded. A lot of people kind of fought me on this. They think that, having Joe Flacco as the placeholder is where we need to be at, but they want to keep Mike White on the roster because he's the younger kid. We've seen what he was able to do, right? The 400+ yard, 3-touchdown performance against the Bengals. And we feel like we don't want to trade that. We know that this can be our backup guy of the future, but you have to think about it from both sides. If we can get picks for a guy that we may not ultimately end up keeping anyways, and judging on, what Mike White did last year, you'd have to think he understands now that he can go out in the NFL and perform and probably be a, worst case scenario, low end starter in the NFL. He wants a crack at that opportunity. And that's just not present here anymore with the New York Jets. So I would say he should go out and go get it by all means. And we can capitalize on that. Originally, if we were going to trade him early on in the offseason, we would have put the 5th round tender on him, which we did, and nothing came to fruition there. So the 5th round, draft pick is the lowest that we're looking at right now, which I think is phenomenal for us. It's not something that the New York Jets have been accustomed to at any point realistically in, the last 20 to 30 years for ourselves, where we can say, hey, we've developed this talent, or we have so much talent here. Let's go ahead and flip these for picks. And I mentioned the Patriots, as much as we can't stand them, quite a bit as kind of the go-tos for this. And you can even say things like teams like the Packers, you can say the Saints, all of these teams that can let stuff go. We have the ability now to start thinking about what the compensatory pick formula and, starting to use that to replicate some draft capital for us as well. Let me see what we got going on here. I think there's a couple comments. Let's see. Been a fan since 1980. Mike Evans, the D-line will be top 5 and the total D will be top 10. Our running game will be top 5 total. Offense will be ranked 13. We win the East. Zach will be average. Okay, I can't I can't disagree with that. I think defensively, if we're anywhere outside of, and I'm playing it safe, but if we're anywhere outside of the top 16, I definitely think. My bad, something cut off for me. But something's definitely gone horrendously wrong for us. We have too many pieces that are in place now. The only place that you can say that is a weakness for us realistically, and I'm talking about just as almost an entire unit, is the linebacking core. And I think this is really the piece that everybody is kind of up in the air on. CJ Mosley, we know, is a dog. Undoubtedly. I don't care what anybody says about the injury, him losing a step, anything like that. If we take the leadership kind of role that he's played outside of it and everything and just say, who is this guy for us? Take a look at that first game that he played last year before the groin injury and stuff took place. He was having, quite frankly, the best game of not only his career, but probably any middle linebacker in the last 10 years, where he was making a play literally almost every play, every other play. But outside of that, we have huge question marks. I mean, we have 2 rookies that couldn't consistently see the field last year. And then we have players that have dwindled off and aren't really in the fold anymore. So that would really be my biggest question in terms of if we see a terrible, defensive performance by us this season. The crutch for us is really going to be this linebacker core. The defensive line has to excel, and I think we have the cornerbacks that can mask the safety deficiencies this time, instead of it being the inverse, where last year we're seeing our safeties be a lot more that actual safety net, no pun intended, for the rest of our team. Trust me on this. I'm a guru. I got you, Mike. I got you. I'm going to check you out after the live for sure. If you're posting videos or whatever, I'm going to peek and see if there's anything that you got for us out there. Let me go back and see what you said again real quick. D-line will be top 5, total D's top 10. Our running game will be top 5, total offense will be ranked 13. I don't know if we are, let me see, what did you say? We're winning the East? Yeah, winning the East is a tough stretch, dude. Personally, I think legitimately every other team in our division is on paper far and away better than us, at least based on recent performances. We're talking about the Dolphins finishing 9-8 last year, the Patriots finishing 10-7, and the Bills 11-6. The Bills looked like they were the cream of the crop last season and kind of fell off a little bit after quite a few games. But I don't think you can comfortably say that the confidence is great, but realistically, we can't comfortably say we can beat every team undoubtedly in our division. I think the first step for us is definitely going to be seeing if we can actually just compete in our division. We went, 0-6 last year without a single division win. And we haven't had that happen, in my memory, in at least 20 plus years. So that has to be the first fix for us, even if our record ended up being 6-11. But we said we won every division in our game, and obviously that would put us in the playoffs. But if we were to win at least half of the games in our division, that would be a step in the right direction. And I would ideally hope that that is either 2 wins against either the Patriots or the Bills, or at least one, win down the middle against the Dolphins, Bills, and the Patriots. Hello, I'm Unguard to the max, and I'm a Cleveland Browns fan and YouTuber. I'm looking for a New York Jets fan and a YouTuber to work with when we host the Jets in week 2. Would you be interested? Yeah, Unguard to the max, hit my email. I'll definitely link with you, and we can work out some content and what the details and stuff look like. I'm definitely all for it. I posted a video already of kind of what I thought that week 2 breakdown would look like, so you can check that out if you just want a bit of background. But for sure, hit me up, or I'll hit you up after the live stream, no doubt. Mike Evans, watch out for wide receiver turn tight end. Are we talking about, whoops, my bad. Mike Evans, are we talking about Lawrence Cager here? The wide receiver convert. I heard he was turning a lot of heads, 2 to 3 catches every practice that they called out. He was showing very significant hands. Something that we didn't necessarily hear about him at the wide receiver position. And it's interesting because in our offense, I would say the wide receiver position is the harder to learn because Mike LaFleur wants them to learn all 3 positions, which is what the big struggle with Denzel Mims was, by the way. I think a lot of people are giving him slack, but he had a lot on his plate last offseason. I mean, he had the salmon, was it food poisoning it was? Obviously, that made him drop. I think it was reported like 20 pounds. Then he had to work back into football shape, get into conditioning, and then he was learning this extremely complex playbook. And shouts out to Jets X Factor, by the way. They always put out great work, but I brushed up myself on kind of what this West Coast offense is like and what the scheme requires and stuff. And he did, I think it was Blewett, did an excellent kind of simple breakdown on how much goes into it and why Denzel Mims might have been struggling so heavily during his rookie year, not his rookie year, excuse me, but in year 1 with Mike LaFleur compared to his rookie season where we've seen a lot of explosive plays on tape. Buffalo Jet fan, what's good, boss? I appreciate you even tapping in to check it out. Appreciate the shout out for sure. If you guys don't know, Buffalo Jet fan, he's a dope Jets YouTuber. Hopefully we'll link up at some point near here in the future, but the dude has awesome content. If you watch this channel for any length of time, you've seen how things have evolved for him. A lot of satire and humor in there, but he's definitely spot on with a lot of his facts. And you can tell he has a lot of knowledge in terms of how some of these plays are running things. I would definitely recommend checking him out when you get the chance. Mike, you said we will win it. Paper champs, they are. We got chemistry. That Tampa game last year was a small sample size. I would agree. The Tampa game was by far, I think, the game where you've seen that we put it all together, right? There wasn't a single phase where we didn't have a big play. I mean, Braxton Berrios had the big special teams return. I think he actually had 2 of them that game. We also got a chance to see what was it? That was the game Braxton Berrios actually showed out in all 3 phases, right? He was balling out as a wide receiver. He was running a lot of the jet sweeps and kind of misdirection plays for us at that point in the game. And then, of course, in the return game, he actually broke out. But personally, I would say when it comes to the division, I think that we do beat out the Dolphins. Tua is an interesting quarterback to me because I think he did have a lot of things in place. And I don't know if that huge hip injury that he had impacted what his, general draft prospects were going to look like, or at least his NFL potential. But there's this one play that stuck out, and if I can find it, I'll show it to you guys. But he threw an interception into what was almost like triple coverage. It was a guy out in the flats. There was a guy maybe 5 to 7 yards in front of his receiver, and then another guy near the boundary. And his guy just did a quick in cut. Maybe about 6 yards, and he completely overthrew him to an area that didn't even look like it was designated to him. And he wasn't under pressure realistically, which was the craziest part of it. So that mixed with some of the stuff I've seen in the offseason, some of the behind, what is it, trailing balls that he's been throwing to, Tyreek Hill and things like that. And I don't know if it's truly an arm strength, lack of lack of arm strength that he has there, or if he's still just trying to find some kind of, chemistry and what is it, synchronicity, I guess you can call it, if that's a word, with the rest of his team. But his failures will be our wins. And I think this time we have the defense to support a lot. If Zach Wilson does return to some of this hero ball, we can actually rely on our defense this time around to bail him out. And if he doesn't, and we see the Tampa Bay Zach Wilson, or even any of the final games he played, where at least he's giving the offense a chance and he's not turning the ball over habitually, then we're in every game. I mean, realistically, let's kind of take a look at the schedule here. I think I stopped maybe week 3 or week 4 in when I was kind of breaking things down. So I definitely need to get back to that. But if we are talking the Jets schedule, all right, so we have week 1, the Ravens, and obviously we have the whole AFC North ahead of us. We have, and where am I at here? The Ravens, the Bengals. I want to say we can win against the Ravens. Honestly, I don't think that's too much of a wild concept for us. If we're going to start there with week 1, I think the Ravens game is very winnable. If we lose, I think it's purely because Lamar Jackson goes beast mode, Superman on us. He could single-handedly dominate this game, which is why I'm very interested, because this preseason we play a lot of mobile quarterbacks. I want to know how our defense might operate against those style quarterbacks. If we're going to run spy concepts and maybe keep a safety or somebody like Whitehead in there to kind of monitor things, especially since he's much better around this line of scrimmage anyways. Do we keep him there to keep things in check? Do we try to use one of our linebackers? We have a lot of speed, not a lot of size, which is something everybody is fighting us on. Or do we just let the defense play it the way we want to play it, and we're not necessarily changing it up to the offenses that we're playing? Do we let the defensive line try to feast and just let the linebackers make whatever plays they can get? It's going to be an interesting scenario for us, no doubt. Evans, you trust me, Miami and Pats will both finish 8-9. Bills will be 10-7. Jets will be 11-6. Mark it down. I'm all for it. Hey, if we get an 11-win season, I think without a doubt that means we found all of the critical pieces that we haven't been able to find over this last decade. We finally have our head coach intact. We have a offensive coordinator that should be able to keep a similar system in place with, of course, modifications each offseason in place instead of having to work through multiple coordinators. We'll finally have a consistent defensive coordinator. And then we even have places in peace already for when Mike LaFleur hopefully ultimately gets a head coaching job. We can slide a Rob Calabrese in place or whatever offensive quality assistant. I forget what they call them, but I feel like it's quality coordinators, I want to say it's called. Either way, we'll have some of those guys in place to take over right after the next. So I'm super excited for it. Evans, I really hope you do videos, bro. Let me know in the comments if you do. I'd love to check some of them out because I got to hear what some of these thoughts are more in depth for sure. I would generally one of the most optimistic Jets fans, I guess you can say. 11-6, I would say, is probably slightly above where I would say expectations are. But I can agree. I think Whitehead will most likely be the spy. It only makes sense. Dude, his highlights, when we picked him up as a free agent, I really had to go back and check him out. I knew he would be a good pickup from a contractual, point of view. But when I seen his highlights, and obviously, I just checked out the one for Michael Clemson. The point of a highlight is to put all the great stuff out there, right? So there's a lot of bad stuff, I'm sure, that's on tape. But man, the way he gets after players at the line of scrimmage is almost, and I don't want to necessarily put it out there and people make those comparisons, it's almost Troy Polamalu-esque. He's out there almost getting past the line of scrimmage the moment the ball is getting snapped. And I loved it. He's, stopped plenty of running backs almost before they even got the ball. I love the fact that he hits hard. One of my favorite players that didn't necessarily ever get a chance to really have a lot of greatness with the Jets in terms of being like a real fit was LaRon Landry. I love playing with him in Madden. I was absolutely crushing people like all the time. So having Whitehead back there is going to be fun. We haven't had an enforcer really since Jamal Adams, and since before him has been quite a while. But I think the Ravens is a winnable game for us. The Bengals, obviously, after what we did last year, and then I think we just have more pieces in place to have success. I would say that could be a win. And I would say the Browns could be a win. Right now, it's looking very likely like Deshaun Watson might end up being suspended for the year. And I know those talks just got concluded. And I don't think they said there's a timetable on the NFL and whoever that mitigated person was to make a decision on it. But I would say probably by training camp, right? I don't think the NFL necessarily wants to hinder what the Browns can do to have a successful season. But I would say if Deshaun Watson doesn't play, I think that's a clear W for us. I mean, who else is going to win the game for them? You know, they picked up Jacoby Brissett, I think it was, and he's not a guy that's scaring anybody in the NFL. He can do a little damage with his legs, but realistically, he's very much like a poor man's Alex Smith to me, except he's a little bit more mobile. So I'm not really worried about anything that can happen with him. The Steelers, I think, is the most realistic loss outside of the Ravens that we probably catch. So we're taking a look at maybe 2-2. Maybe 3-1. I would say the Bengals and the Steelers are probably the L's that we take. And then the Browns is a toss-up. It's really going to depend on what Cleveland does with Deshaun Watson. I break down all the film from last year. We will start off a hot 6-2. I'm all for it. Let's see. So right now we're saying what, 3-1? We'll go 2-2. I'll try to keep it realistic. We went against the Ravens. We went against the Browns. The Bengals, we catch an L. The Steelers, we catch an L. 2-2. The Dolphins, I'm going to say we win. I think we actually sweep them this season. Dolphins, I'm going to say is a dub, so we're 3-2. Then we have the Packers. I really want to say this can be a win, but considering that it's kind of like Mr. Miyagi moment, we have Aaron Rodgers, who's essentially been kind of playing like Darrelle Revis, right? Kind of a casual mentor of sorts for Zach Wilson. But they've been at this much longer. He's performing to a much higher level. The only way I see us winning here is if what the Packers did to the wide receiver core shoots them in the foot. We know their running game's excellent. Aaron Jones is an absolute beast. But if they can't get on the same page, since he has so much young talent over there, and we know he demands quite a bit, obviously, at this point, they have, 4 weeks of practice, not including preseason, to kind of get things in shape. I think the Packers is an L, but that would kind of be the caveat to it. If the wide receivers can't get on board, then I think that we get a dub there. But 2-2, 3-2, so what? We're at a 3-3 split. The Broncos, I don't see us beating Russell Wilson. Honestly, don't. Even the game with Tampa Bay, Brady's kind of a dying breed. He's really the only pocket quarterback that you're really going to find out here in this day and age. So if everything goes right, it's not necessarily hard to stop him. Whereas if you have a Russell Wilson and the guy can keep a play open forever, I mean, the play is almost never dead until you literally see him hit the pay dirt. But he can keep a play alive forever. And he has so much more weaponry around him than he did with Seattle. And you can arguably even say a much better offensive line for himself, as well as a defense. I mean, he had those Legion of Boom days, but he has a defense in Denver that can definitely kind of sort of rival what he had with the Seahawks. So I would say that's definitely an L. We have the Patriots. Since it's a home game, I want to say that we walk away with the win on this one. The Bills, I think we potentially get swept by. I don't see a situation where we really beat the Bills. I think they just have the perfect combination of Josh Allen just coming into his own. They have the young legs at running back. They stole Jamison Crowder for us, from us. They already had other weapons there. Stephon Diggs looks like he'll have a relationship with Josh Allen that should keep them top, 5, pass receiving duo in the NFL for quite some time. And then the defense, I mean, they broke down quite a bit, but the game's never over until those final 60 minutes is up if they're not going into overtime. I mean, they've come back from so many porous performances early on. Until they start to break down, or we just get to that level where we're saying that we're not even calling it overachieving anymore. We're just considered one of those top echelon teams in the NFL. I don't see us really being able to win against them. So that's an L. We face the Patriots again. So at this point, we're looking at a streak of, 3 back-to-back division games. And the Patriots are at home. So I would say that is probably an L just due to wear and tear. We do have, I want to say this is where our bye week comes into play, no? Because the Bills game is November 6th, and then the Patriots, we don't play until the 20th. So we have 2 weeks essentially to rest up. So actually, that might be our end. I would circle that as maybe a maybe. We could possibly win that game just based off coming back fresh. We already got the win, 3 weeks at that point earlier. So we could probably build on what we actually did there for them. The Bears, I think, should automatically be a win. Nobody can tell me that the Bears aren't looking like they're going to go 0-17 this season. I kept seeing, it was something on Twitter, and I don't use Twitter, but it's something that popped up through like Bleacher Report, where they showed a list of what they surrounded Justin Fields with this offseason and the wide receiver, running back, and tight end room. And it is pretty bad. They already almost had nobody on that wide receiver, in that wide receiver room that could do any damage. But then who did they steal from us? They have in their tight end room. Hold on, I got to find this because this is crazy. They had in their wide receiver room, or at least for their tight ends, let's see, who was it they grabbed? It was Ryan Griffin. They picked up Ryan Griffin, and it's not like they're lauding him as, NFL stat leader for them or anything of the sort. But they pick up Ryan Griffin. I mean, obviously, we let him go for a reason. Even having an injured Jeremy Rucker was better than having Ryan Griffin sitting around there. But Cole Kmet is really the only particular weapon that they may have. And he's shown up in flashes. Otherwise, there's nobody in this wide receiver room other than Darnell Mooney that you look at and you say, okay, he could pose a threat. Let's see what we can do against him. And my argument here would be the same for my argument against the Ravens, in that our cornerback room matched up specifically against them. No help, no anything. We should dominate that matchup all game. So, yeah, I'm not worried about the Bears whatsoever. If anything, I would say that's the game we look at and we say, okay, we should excel in almost every phase of the game. And I only say almost because I'm curious what our special teams core is going to actually end up looking like at that point. But the Bears should be a game where by the time Sunday ends during that game, Twitter should be going crazy with calling the Jets, the next greatest show on turf or something crazy. Russell Wilson can't handle our stout D-line. You considered the Bills and the Ravens losses as well. We sweep the Pats. Mac Jones is in for a tough season. I don't know. I like Mac Jones, actually. I really do. I think he comes through a lot smarter as a player than having any, physical traits that stands out. And if things continued, I check in on the division rivals quite a bit. I would be super curious to see how, their 4-game stretch compares to ours. But I think we see Mac Jones still flourish. I mean, from everything they've seen on game tape, and they were able to improve things that happened around him, I don't think you can count Mac Jones out. I really think Tua Tagovailoa, I really think he's the odd man out in this division. Zach Wilson will be on the rise. Josh Allen is still sitting on the perch. And then, of course, we have Mac Jones that we're talking about now. But so we go from the Bears, we get to the Vikings. The Vikings is a weird team for me. I feel like they're in transition. And I don't know if that's necessarily a good thing or a bad thing for them. I think this could be a win for us if we start punishing in the run game. There's a lot of pieces they don't have there anymore. We'll see if Anthony Barr maybe comes back. But they're in flux. Their offensive line unit is in shambles. Obviously, they still have a great wide receiver room. They still have an amazing running back in Dalvin Cook. But that defense has been cut up quite a bit too. And then you have to wonder how much more Kirk Cousins, still has in the tank at this day and age. And he's not been a quarterback that can win for his ball game or win for his football team, I should say. He's not winning any ball games for his team. Kirk Cousins is more so like the ultimate game manager in terms of he'll put some points on the board, they'll score, and then, essentially after that first half, if they're not up, you're looking at an uphill battle. He's not going to win the game for you, but he's not necessarily going to lose the game for you either. He can't throw past 15 yards. Everybody in the league will adjust to Mac. I don't know. I heard his deep ball this offseason was pretty good. If we're going to purely talk about what happened last year, then I'll give it to you. But the developments in the offseason and the training camp with Bill Belichick being a lot more hands-on with the offense was Mac Jones was letting it rip. The Parker pickup from the Dolphins seems like it's been doing wonders for him. But again, we'll see. In my opinion, I feel like if we're talking about deep ball passes and being able to operate an offense, he will still be better at it than Tua will be. But I'm all for it. His failure is our success. So if you guys like it, I love you. We faced the Bills again after the Vikings. Obviously, personally, again, I think that's a sweep. I don't see us winning at home or, in their building. And then we face the Lions. The Lions I will put as the trap game. The Lions are the trap game for me. I feel like the Lions have a lot of interesting pieces. Jared Goff will be surrounded by a much better room. And I don't think he's necessarily a player that you put in the same lane as a Kirk Cousins in them. He's sort of the third tier of the guys, right? If we're talking about the Aaron Rodgers and the Russell Wilsons of the world, and then that second tier, or the Josh Allens being up there with them as well, and the second tier being more so of your guys like, who comes to mind off the top of my head? Who would actually come in mind off the top of my head? Josh Allen, Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady's. At the top, I would probably say the next tier of guys would probably have to be Kirk Cousins. It would have to be maybe a guy like Jalen Hurts, maybe. Some of those guys that at least have some kind of winning pedigree up there, that have shown that they have at least an aspect of their game that they can take over with. And then we be talking about these guys like Jared Goff, Kirk Cousins, stuff like that. So either way, with the Seahawks, or with the Lions, excuse me, I would say this is a trap game. It's a game I feel like we should win. Ultimately, it's going to determine, this will be the same old Jets game for me in terms of if that rings true or if we've actually turned the corner. If we play down to the Lions, then I think we are really looking at this next draft being what we need to say that, all right, it's go time. We need to absolutely have winning seasons moving forward. No more of this settlement talk. And if we don't play down to them and we still end up having a poor season, we can say we won all the games that we should have. Of course, we play the Jaguars. I think that'll be another dub for us. This is the season I really want to track Trevor Lawrence. I know a lot of people were trying to compare him to Zach Wilson last offseason, or last season anyways. But, man, Trevor Lawrence had one of the roughest seasons just in terms of on-field performance and surrounding factors around him. It's tough. Honestly, he kind of had that whole circus element at the end of like the Rex Ryan period kind of had. But they took it to another level. I mean, I can't remember the last time a coach gets fired in season due to the type of stuff that was going on. And there's still pending issues with, I heard he kicked the kicker and, you know, a bunch of other craziness. But either way, the Jaguars, I would say, is a win. The Seahawks, I think we should win against as well. And then, of course, we have the Dolphins again. And I think that's a sweep. So we're saying what? 5, 6, 7. I got about 10 or 11 wins. Mike, you might be onto something. You might have been onto something, bro. I got about 10 or 11 wins on the season for us if things pan out in the worst case scenario. Ravens, Browns, assuming Deshaun Watson doesn't play. Dolphins twice. Patriots once. The Bears, the Vikings, the Lions, Jaguars, Seahawks, and Dolphins, I think, should all be wins. Missing Lamar Jackson. I don't know. I don't like the players like Lamar Jackson from the standpoint that it's hard for me to potentially peg them into a certain group. Lamar Jackson, I think, undoubtedly, obviously has the skills to be considered up there, right? He's won the MVP. He's had a ridiculous season on the ground as well as through the air. But he's still, to this point, not the best actual thrower in the NFL world. He's really won a lot of games purely off his athleticism, almost to this point still, which I think he probably should have stayed at quarterback like he's done and not made the conversion to wide receiver like a lot of people wanted. But I would probably say he's still in like that B tier group. I wouldn't necessarily say he's in the Aaron Rodgers, you know, Patrick Mahomes level playing field just yet. This season will say a lot, though. He's not. He doesn't have his favorite wide receiver in the room anymore. He still potentially has at least one good guy, but their offense really built around the running game and the tight end room. So we'll see what happens there. But I'm curious. Do you guys have any outlandish guesses on what will happen during the regular season for us? Or for any players in potential, or any players specifically, I should say, anyways. I don't think I have anything else crazy that's out there. Personally, if I had to pick one standout player on offense and defense, I think I would have to go. I really want to say Elijah Moore. I think he's the guy that undoubtedly stands out the most anywhere on our roster. And probably will end up being the most consistent from game to game. I'm only concerned on if he ends up staying healthy. Jets lead the league in rushing. I don't know. Okay, so here's the interesting thing. There's a few random stats that I've seen that was put out there, and just stuff I was looking up that I pieced together. So the Jets finished 32nd in rush attempts last year, and inversely, we were 32nd in, how do I say this? Basically, the rest of the NFL were able to rack up all of the rushing attempts against us since we were always playing to catch up. We were the only team in the entire NFL that ended up having a game where we were playing from behind every game of the regular season. That is 17-0 and not the way that we want it to sound. So I don't know. I think, obviously, if you take a look at what the 49ers and stuff did before, they placed generally anywhere from number 10 to, I think it was like number 18 in the NFL in terms of rushing attempts. And they did have the potential to be like a top 5 unit there. So maybe it's not super far off. I don't know if we see that we lead the league in rushing, though. Ravens, Bills, Detroit, Miami, Seattle. These are losses. The last loss, which will equal 6 losses. What's your guess? Ravens, Bills, Detroit. Are we saying the Bills twice? The Bills twice. Okay. So you have us beating the Patriots twice, Miami once, and the Bills twice. I don't know. From when I looked at it, it was looking like a 10-7 season or 11-6. I had us beating the Patriots once, sweeping Miami, and I had us losing twice to the Bills. And I think we had wins against the Seahawks, the Jags, the Lions, the Bears, and the Browns and Ravens. The Bills once. You run a hard bargain, Mike. You run a hard bargain, dude. I would have a question for you. So if we're saying that we can win against the Bills, is there a certain position that's standing out, or are we saying this is just an overall performance where we're just beating them outright? With our running backs plus Zach hits legs, plus Zach's legs, Braxton and Moore gadget ability, and our tight ends leading the way, let's play bully ball. I would be all for it. Personally, I miss that, and this is from a time where I don't even remember saying, like, I'm a New York Jets fan. I was a Gang Green fan, right? It was ground and pound. We had Sean Green punching people in the mouth all game. We had LT following up behind him. We had Bilal Powell, who was one of my favorite, players in New York Jets history by far. That was out there leading the way at certain periods and times himself. So I would love to get back to that. And I think Breece Hall was almost like the picture perfect player from the NFL draft. If we can pencil him in and say this is what we needed, he was going to be that guy. And it was so interesting seeing that JD was going to make the move up in the first round for him, but still get his guy in the second. If we can't run the ball this season, dude, we have a lot of problems on our hands, and I think we would need to take a look at the coaching staff seriously again. I did talk about John Benton, right? The offensive line coach being pretty much one of our keys this season. He has to coach up the offensive line. We have to get them to perform. If injuries happen, then they happen, and then we have to take a look at Joe Douglas and say, why was he willing to bet on things? But without a doubt, if John Benton's offensive line can't perform top 15 in the NFL, the season's basically a waste. We had the Bills once. Trust me, D-line and running game will dictate the game. Bills are nervous. Bryce Hall is Thomas Jones on steroids. I'll take it. I'll take it. Thomas Jones used to be a cheat code. I can't what year was that? Thomas Jones was what, 07, 08, 09, something like that? I'm curious if one of the things I want to kind of deep dive into, there's a series of videos I got to come up with. I just got to, find the time for all the things. I'm curious if we'll break the 2,000, rushing yards as a team barrier. And I'm curious how many passing attempts Zach Wilson will actually have on his game or have on his plate per game. What happened to Long Beach Joe? He didn't get back to me today. He reached out earlier. He wanted to know if I still wanted to run the live stream today. And I think he's in the East Coast. We didn't get to hammer everything out. I was going to leave some, some background about him during the video, but he didn't get back to me. So maybe something came up. He's on the East Coast, so and I'm on the West Coast. I'm out here in Vegas, so 6 o'clock my time is 9 o'clock where he's at. So it's pretty late. But when he does get back to me, I am going to hammer out something again with him. And it'll probably be around the same time, 6 o'clock, unless he can do something earlier. And most likely on a weekend day, since things are pretty crazy for both of us, but we'll see. I'm looking forward to trying to get a lot more people in. This is really the first live stream I've actually done if I haven't posted like a Madden video. So hopefully we'll get the ball rolling. I don't know how consistent this will be, but I did have a few people in the works. Long Beach Joe will definitely get back on. The plan was at some point to work with a Buffalo Jets fan. I really like him, and then we'll see, you know, how we blow up from here. Appreciate you, boss. I want all my Jets fans to speak that 11-6 record into the universe. Hey, I'll tell you what though. So I don't know how many people are like new to the channel or just, you know, check in here and there, whatever the case is. But I had dropped something maybe 2-3 months back where I ended up being like a community captain in the Bleacher Report app for our Jets team. And I was trying to get everybody to go crazy for a long time in terms of raising the expectations. A lot of what I was hearing was, we'll do, you know, 4 to 6 wins, and people were okay with that. And of course, a lot of the Bleacher Report articles and a lot of the stuff from like ESPN that I was seeing at the time had the same thing. But I'm thinking 10 wins is probably realistically what we should be looking at. I think that's probably the floor. 10 wins or bust. Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. But I'm curious as well. You know, I drop it out there every once in a blue moon. I don't know who all you guys else watch because I haven't reached out to too many people. But if there's certain people you want to see me link with or you know, check out, just let me know. Not 10, but 11. Hey, I'm all for it. I'm all for it. 11, I can definitely see. They're young, but the talent is out there. Fully agreed. And I think that's going to be the huge thing that we should be looking at is a lot of the behind the scenes work that the coaching staff is doing. How well do our rookie players from last year perform? So our sophomore guys, our Zach Wilsons, our Elijah Moores, our Michael Carters, or Michael Carter II as well. I just call them MCU or, you know, Michael Carter Universe at this point in time. But I really want to see development. I mean, I think we've seen it over the course of the regular season, but there were so many times during every other regime where you take a look at our roster and you say, you know, why are these guys performing either around the same level they did before or worse? And we're talking about, you know, when we're going out and we're literally buying as many big names as we can during free agency. So you think that we, you know, should be supplementing something there. We had 10 wins before and we still didn't make the playoffs. Very true. That was a very odd season, though. I think that was the turning point for the AFC East, or not the AFC East, but the AFC as a whole, where we started saying like 10 wins is really the low point. That's the entry point. If you can't win your division, we need 10 wins to see you on a Sunday from this point moving forward, because we don't need any trash during the playoffs. Appreciate you, Nathan. Appreciate you guys tuning in and showing some of the love for sure. You should link with Tyson from Let's Talk Jets Radio and Ian from Jets Central. I'll reach out to him. I'm very familiar with Ian. I think as we all are, right? If you were a Jets fan any point in the last like 5+ years and you were checking out stuff on YouTube, Ian was the guy who showed up like religiously outside of anything from ESPN or like a First Take. That would be crazy. I don't know if I can make it happen, guys. I'm still a pretty small channel, but I'll definitely tap in with him. You never know. I think we might call it a wrap here soon in a minute or two, too. I wasn't expecting this to go as long as it did. It's crazy. They'll work with you for sure. Hey, I appreciate the love. I appreciate the love. I'll put it out there to the universe. We'll see what happens. We shall see. I'm a busy guy with the kiddos and all that. So if we do agree to it, I will shift whatever I can in my schedule that don't impact my boys to make it happen. That'd be crazy, though. That's almost like if we're not talking about the New York Jets franchise in and of itself, some of those guys is legendary to me. I remember, I think maybe it was like one of my first, like somewhere in the first 30 videos I put out. And I had a Green Bean comment on one of them saying what a great job I did on the video. It was wow. Have a good night, bro. I appreciate you, Joe. Have a good night, boss. You're a king. You don't need anyone. I'm going to get you a major interview. Hey, good looking out, dude. I appreciate you. Love your takes, my man. Be well. Appreciate the love. Everyone will be happy to work with you. Love you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. DM me on IG. I got you. Say less, bro. Drop your IG in the comments for me. I want to say you commented your email, or maybe you dropped like your Twitter or something before, but yeah, hit me up. All right, y'all. I think I'm gonna call it a close too. I stole an hour away, and I can hear my son up there going crazy. So I'm gonna get things going. But I appreciate all the love. Thanks for everybody that stopped by and came in. Mike, appreciate the info, boss. I'm gonna hit you up and tap in with you. And for the suggestions that people dropped, I'm gonna see what I can make happen, guys. Appreciate the love. Any support, as always, is greatly appreciated. I'm gonna holler at you guys again. Peace.